In this video, we're going to learn how to convert between exponential and radical forms. Now, an exponential form is just a term with an exponent, while a radical form is a term with a radical. So in order to convert between the two forms, you need to remember that the denominator of a fractional exponent is the index of a radical, while the numerator of that fraction is the power you raise that term to, whether it's on the inside of the radical or outside of the radical. So when I see x to the 3/7, that is the same as the 7th roots of x to the 3rd power, or you would write the 7th root of x, parentheses, raised to the 3rd power. But if you ever see a decimal, then you have to try to get an equivalent fraction. So 3/5 is the same as -7/2. That makes up 3/5. And then we do have a negative exponent, so we do move that to the denominator. So we have y to the positive 7/2. We have a negative exponent, it moves to the denominator. And now we can convert it to its radical form, which will be the square roots of y to the 7th power. And if I were to simplify this expression, I would have 1 over y cubed square roots of y, because I have y to the 6th, or 3 perfect squares of y. Let me fix that. I accidentally wrote a 7. And then to rationalize its denominator, I would just multiply by the square root of y in the numerator and the denominator. And that would give me the square root of y over y cubed times y, because the square root of y times the square root of y is just y. Leave me with the square root of y over y to the 4th. That would be its radical form. Even though there is a non-radical factor, now that we have that radical for y, that's in radical form. Next up, we have y to the -9/8. So if I were to rewrite this as 1 over y to the positive 9/8, I can now put that into radical form as 1 over the 8th roots of y to the 9th. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to simplify that radical by taking out one y. So I have y times the 8th roots of y, because I have 1 perfect 8th power inside of y to the 9th. And then to rationalize the denominator, I'm going to multiply by the 8th roots of y to the 7th. So y times y to the 7th makes y to the 8th and helps me get rid of the 8th roots. And whatever I do to the denominator, I should also do to the numerator. So I'll end up with the 8th roots of y to the 7th power over y times the 8th roots of y to the 8th, which is just y, leaving me with my answer of the 8th roots of y to the 7th over y squared, y times y. And when I have t to the 1.2, you have to imagine that as t to the 6/5. Now you see the fraction. You can now rewrite that as the 5th roots of t to the 6th power. Now, when you want to convert to exponential forms, keep that reverse in mind. You're first going to indicate what is the index of your radical. The index here is 2, so I'll have a denominator of 2, and the numerator will be 5, because a is raised to the 5th power. And there's my exponential form. Now when I have the 5th root of b to the 3rd power, I have to imagine that this is now b with a denominator of 5, because the index of the roots to the 3rd power, so it'll be 3/5. The index goes to the denominator, the other power goes to your numerator. So over here, when I see the 4th root of c squared, that is the same as c to the 4 in the denominator and then 2 in my numerator, 2/4 power, which can be simplified to 1/2. So apparently this is the same, the 4th root of c squared is the same as the square root of c. And here I'll have 5xy. Denominator of the radical is 2. Power raised to is 2. So I get 5xy to the first power, leave me with 5xy. But one thing you should keep in mind is that this expression could be negative, but looking up here, squaring this inside part is always going to be a positive number. So the output should always be positive. So we'll put it into absolute value. And if you wanted to simplify this, you can separate the 5, absolute value of 5, times the absolute value of xy, and just to get 5 absolute value of xy. So when I transfer this to an exponential form, I actually end up getting this absolute value expression. And that is how you convert between exponential and radical forms.